Hey everyone, I am just going to wait for a minute, see if anyone comes on, then I will get started. All right, I'm just going to get started and people can join as they come in. All right, so I just want to give a little bit of background for me. So this is about adventuring, and I do a lot of adventuring. If you know me or follow me on social media or you work with me. But anyways, for those of you who don't know me, I love to adventure. So for example, since the end of September, I have probably been home maybe a week or two. So I've been on the road quite a bit. I have been in California. Last week I was in Las Vegas, and then I went to Arizona, a little bit of Utah. So I've been all around the past month. So I'll talk a little bit more about that as well. So I have some experience with international travel, so I'll give you guys as much as I have about that too, and my experience on that. And I also want to just say, like, this is going to be what I know. So of course there's going to be like a million other different things that you can do, or different ways to do things. It's going to matter if you have a family, if you're single, if you have kids. So I think that if you know who I am first, I do not have kids and I am not married. So that kind of opens up the freedom to be gone for a month or whatever, and not really have a lot of responsibility to that. And then obviously, as you guys know, I also work from home. So that definitely allows me a bit more freedom too. So some things might not apply, and that's totally okay. So if you have questions about anything or like suggestions, go ahead and feel free to leave it in the comments, and I will answer as best as I can. So I want to talk a little bit of how I grew up. Most of my adventures are outdoor adventures, and so this kind of has to do, I always think that it has to do with how I grew up. My family was really big into riding horse when I was young, so horseback riding. We would go to the mountains of Wyoming and we would ride horse there. I grew up in Minnesota, so we were always on trails doing that. So I was constantly outside, and if you have like livestock like type animals like that, they obviously need care, so you're outside caring for them. So even when I was home, when I was younger, I was always outside with them. So I am a very big outdoorsy person. When I went to college, I was in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and Sioux Falls, you can probably guess the name. There are waterfalls there. So I made sure that I balanced my schoolwork with some outdoor adventures. I used to go, this is going to sound silly, but I used to go rollerblading at the bike trails next to the falls in college. That was like my little getaway. So something that was super easy just to get outside, like it didn't cost anything. I just made time for that. And then now I live in Colorado, and I've pretty much lived in Colorado my entire like adult life. So if you know anything about Colorado, maybe people who are internationally, you might not. So Colorado is a very outdoorsy state. So there are a lot of not only free things to do, but things that are extremely accessible. So I take full advantage of that too, which I'll get into that a little bit later too, about some people ask questions about costs and how do you afford to do all of that. So that's a little bit about me and why I choose outdoor adventures. I mean, you can do all kinds of adventures, but I'm going to talk a lot about outdoor adventures just because that's what I'm familiar with. So the first topic is picking a destination. This can be this can come a million different ways. So some things that I thought about how I pick destinations, Instagram inspiration. I'm sure there's like different like rei.com or REI's Instagram or wilderness culture, like they have like the most beautiful things ever that they post, or just like random people. Like it has like the explore page, and there's like beautiful things there. So I get a lot of ideas from that. Word of mouth, so people that I know that have visited there, friends, family, acquaintances. So word of mouth is a really big one. Return visits, so places that maybe I visited when I was younger that I don't remember necessarily or want to explore again, or places that I want to explore more. A good place that I have explored a lot over and over is San Diego. That's one place. Yosemite is one place that I want to go back like multiple times to. Utah is another place, Colorado, obviously, whatever, Wyoming. Another place that I thought of that I have looked and I've yet to do, but I think that it would be a really awesome thing, is Groupon. So Groupon always has like these amazing adventures, and it includes like flight, hotel, guide, like an adventure, like I think there's like a safari one or whatever. So Groupon has tons of inspiration, also good deals. So if you're looking for a good deal, you can maybe bring your family. Another way is visiting your friends and family. So when I was in California, I went and stayed with Coach Ashley. She lives in California, and we explored a whole bunch of things in that state. So so visiting friends and family. Okay, next topic, accommodations. So I'm gonna just say right away that I am like super cheap, and you're gonna laugh. So I just went to Las Vegas, and I stayed in this super like sketch hotel, whatever, but it was like the cheapest place, so I stayed there, and I definitely had thoughts of maybe I shouldn't have stayed here, but so I always look for like the cheapest deal. So when I do that, I will start with Google. Google is usually my go-to for a lot of things, which I'm sure a lot of you can relate to. And then my next place to shop is always either Expedia or Airbnb. So Expedia, you can like bulk things together, like hotel, flight, accommodations, or rental car. So sometimes I'll just use Expedia, and they like search like a wide range of like websites. Another one is Airbnb. So if you don't like to stay in hotels, or maybe you want a kitchen, that's another great option. I've had a lot of luck with Airbnb. But it kind of depends on where you're going. So let's say, I went to Thailand last, when was that? March, I guess. So in March, I went to Thailand for a month, and I traveled all around the country, and I knew I needed internet, and so I did Airbnb for that, and that worked amazing. And you have the reviews, and you know what you're getting. And then a lot of times, like, so I live in the US, so I'll just use Expedia if I just need a quick hotel for a night or two. But again, that has pros and cons too. Another thing that's really amazing, I just found this out this past summer. It's an app. It's called Hotel Tonight. So basically, all the hotels that are trying to get rid of their rooms for the night will put it on a discount, and you can snatch those things up, and then get really nice hotels for super cheap. So I've used this when I go to Aspen, Colorado. They have great deals on Hotel Tonight. And if you know anything about Aspen, it's kind of a more expensive city, like any mountain town. And then the other accommodation, obviously I mentioned this earlier, is staying with friends and family. So that's another option too. Transportation. So a lot of places, like I mentioned, Colorado is super easily accessible. There's a lot of things to see in a very short drive. So within like a 3-hour range, you can see a lot of beautiful things. So I will drive a lot of places. The last 2 trips that I went on, so when I went to California, I drove. And when I went to Las Vegas, Utah, Arizona, I drove. It just made more sense for me to drive cost-wise. So I'll do that too. So I'll weigh the options. Does it make more sense price-wise to drive? Does it make more sense to fly and rent a car? Do I even need a car? So a lot of those things will make a difference too in deciding. So I drive a lot. I like to drive. So it kind of depends if you like to drive too. I mean, if you have a couple of kids, sometimes driving is not that fun because they get bored. But I like to use that as a time to like think. I'll listen to podcasts. I think that it's an awesome time to make it like a learning experience too, you know, or like expand your knowledge base too. So I'll drive a lot. Time of year plays a factor. So you might not want to drive if it's like winter or whatever. I was coming home last week or on Tuesday, and I came from Utah, which was no snow, and Colorado had gotten snow or was getting snow, so I drove home in a blizzard, so that was really fun. Actually not. I actually ended up going in the ditch, which I have never done before, and the sheriff thankfully drove up upon me and pulled me out, so that was really interesting. So time of year kind of plays a factor. If you're not comfortable with unexpected weather changes, maybe that's not a good option for you. Rental cars. So I know, for example, every time I've gone to San Diego or LA, so anywhere in California, rental cars are like the best thing ever. It's like $8 a day or something if you get it early enough. So very, very cheap. When I went to Iceland, it was fairly cheap, so I rented a car. In Iceland, you kind of need a car. So it just depends on where you're going. Heads up on traveling abroad, or some of you people who are not in the US will know this. Most of the rental cars abroad are, or in different countries that are not US, are mostly manual drives. So you might want to brush up on your driving of a manual car before you go, or you can request an automatic car. So that's just a heads up. I can drive a manual car, so that wasn't an issue for me when I went to Iceland, and I saved a little bit of money too. Flying. So I think that the best thing ever for figuring out what the cheapest flights are Google Flights. That kind of gives you an idea of where to start. So you can figure out where the cheapest flights are coming from. So let's say they're coming from Frontier Airlines or something. So you can decide if you want to fly Frontier and then go from there. I also like to go in the off season. So sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. For example, in Thailand, I didn't go when it was like the high season. I went as high season was ending, and where it was kind of like a weird time to go. So it wasn't like there weren't a ton of people weren't flying in a ton, and so it kind of brought the price down a little bit. So there's pros and cons to that, obviously. Let's say you're going to Japan and you want to see the cherry blossom or the blossoms, like you have to go at a specific time, so it's going to kind of limit you. But my second go-to is Expedia for flying. If anybody has recommendations for that, you should definitely leave that in the comments. I think that everybody could benefit from that. Okay, so let's say you've chosen your destination, you've gotten everything worked out, you know where you want to go. Now it's time to plan your schedule. So you have to take into consideration, I personally don't like to take time off. And so if you know me, you know that. And so I am constantly figuring out ways to, I call it work-life balance. So everybody has their definition of that, and my definition of that is being able to do the things that I love and be able to work at the same time. So first you have to figure out if you're going to work on this vacation or this trip or this adventure, or if you are going to only adventure. So that makes a difference. And then I am huge on breaking down my schedule. I don't know if anyone else does this, but I love to write out my schedule hour by hour. then I know exactly where I should be and what I should be doing at that time. This helps not only organize my time, but also make sure that I'm like maximizing each day. So if I am somewhere, let's say, so when I went to Moab, I knew that I wanted to go to Arches National Park, but I knew that I also had to drive home, which is a 6-hour drive. So I needed to figure out how to make sure that I was being productive with my work, but also making sure that I was making it back before midnight, and also being able to fit in a little adventure too. So I like to break down my schedule hour by hour. Again, might work for some of you. And then I'll talk about if you're going solo or not. So that'll make a difference too, because you won't want to leave anyone out of that plan. Next thing, figure out all the things you want to see. So I'll talk more about how to figure that out later on. There was a question about that actually in my post. But figure out, I think one of the biggest things with figuring out all the things that you want to see is then grouping them together so that you have the least amount of travel time. So let's say you want to see 4 different things at a place, and one thing is over here, one thing is over here, and then you have 2 things in the middle. So you want to make sure that you're not going from here to here. You want to make sure that you're optimizing that optimizing that time. So you're going from start to finish and you're not like backtracking at all. So I think that that's super important. So either mapping it out, figuring out how long it takes to get to different places from your hotel or your accommodations, and then kind of organizing your day around that. I had a couple of examples like that too. So in Iceland is like a pretty big, so I stayed in Reykjavik. Sorry if I'm saying that wrong. I stayed in Reykjavik, which is here, and then everything else is like out and about. And I went with my mom, and she was kind of like, go ahead, you figure out the plan. So what I did was I mapped everything, and then I figured out the roads to take to get there, and then I planned out each day based on which regions we would be in. And then it worked out really well. We saw a lot in, I think we were there for like 5 or 6 days, and it worked really well. And then the last thing, the biggest thing with an adventure, at least to me, is having time each day to recharge. So whether your recharging is getting a good night's sleep, making sure you sit down and have a good meal, making sure you get a workout in, making sure you get a nap in. So making sure that you have time to recharge each day, because if you're just like wearing yourself thin, you're going to come back from that adventure, vacation, whatever, and not be ready for like real life again. So making sure that you recharge every single day. I personally am an early to bed person, or I love to take a nap. So I always make sure that I have at least some plan for that in the day. Okay, on to my next point. If you are going solo, or if you are going to have someone come along with you. So if someone is coming with you, then obviously you're going to want their opinion. So getting together, grabbing coffee, figuring out what they want to do, and then you can kind of like get a plan together. I usually take charge of this just because I am such an organizer, so I really like to figure out what the plan is, and I love like having other people's ideas, so then I can like put that into the big plan. So that works for me. I think that having at least one person take initiative to do that is like a really big deal. But on the other hand, I also do a lot of things solo. So I have a tiny little Chihuahua, so she goes with me a lot of places. She's like a 6-pound little pup. I think she's probably flown on a plane like 15 or 20 times. So she goes with me a lot of places. So I do a lot of solo adventuring as well, which kind of makes that easier, especially if you're just like in your home state or staying around where you live. So figuring out if you're going to go solo or if you're going to invite people, and then I'll talk a little bit more about solo adventuring too per a question shortly. So let's get to questions. And if you guys have questions, go ahead and start putting them in the comments section, and I will get to them after the first few questions that I had. So I had some questions from Jackie. Do you have any favorite travel blogs that you follow? So I personally don't necessarily like follow travel blogs a ton, but like if I'm going somewhere, I will like look up different travel blogs. So for example, when I went to Iceland, I followed this one travel blog that was amazing, and it's called The Blonde Abroad, and I can put these in the comments. Another one that I use for adventures around the US, especially in Colorado, is the outdoorproject.com. There's a lot of different like trails. I think that they have like routes for climbing as well. And then another one when I went to Thailand is the lonelyplanet.com. Lonely Planet has like, I used it a lot actually for like coffee places. So one of my big things is finding new coffee places, or like coffee spots in places that I go. I love coffee, and tasting it all around different regions is really good. And Lonely Planet actually had like a lot of coffee spots, food places, like in Thailand, I think I was in Chiang Mai, and Lonely Planet was like so awesome for food places. I found this like Aussie like restaurant that was like incredible. So Lonely Planet is a good one too, and I think they have like good ideas on adventures as well. And then the other, I use another app, so especially for like hiking and outdoor adventures. It's called All Trails app. So you can basically put in the difficulty you want, the distance you want, the elevation change you want, and then like you can basically search for all of that and figure it, like kind of narrow down. And then you can even log in if it's dog friendly or yeah, a whole bunch of different things. So, oh, if you can bike on it, I guess, if it's good for families, I think you can, that's another setting. So All Trails I use a lot. And then of course, I do a lot of mountaineering too. So I use 14ers.com a lot. 14ers, it's centered around like 14,000 foot mountains, in the US. So, I don't know what that is in meters, sorry. Yeah, so those are the I guess travel blogs that I use. The deciding where to go, so I kind of covered this a little bit, but I'll just review. So by word of mouth, friends or family that I know, who I can visit, Instagram, or like childhood dream spots or places that I've been that I want to go back to. Okay, next question. Next question is, how do you decide where you're going? Okay, so the one of them was friends who have visited these places, and so I'm going to talk about Thailand actually for this. So I had a friend who went to Thailand, and he spent maybe like a month or two there, and so I knew that he would have a lot of ideas of what I needed to see, and he did kind of the same thing I did, where he went all over the country. So I said, hey, can I get you like coffee? And then just like sat down with him and just took notes and just like talked. And if you know, like, I mean, who doesn't love to share like a really amazing experience that they've had? Like, I know if I go somewhere super cool, like, of course I want to sit down with you and have coffee and talk about what I did when I was there, and just like reminisce with you and like show you pictures. So that's pretty much what he did. Like, I got must-sees of every city that I wanted to go to, and it worked out super amazing. And then I could go back to that scheduling and build my itinerary from there. So I got an idea from someone who had already been there. Okay, financially, so the next question, sorry if this is awkward, but how do you financially afford this? So I did mention this earlier. I'm incredibly cheap. So I always do my homework. I always find the cheapest day to go. So let's say if it's cheaper to leave on a Thursday, then I'll leave on a Thursday rather than leave on a Friday. So things like that. If you cannot, or if you don't work from home, obviously you're gonna have to do a little bit of planning. I always think the earlier that you can plan a trip like that. Like let's say you need to get a flight. So I think the earlier you can get a flight, the cheaper it's usually going to be. I think, what is it? It's a general rule, like on Tuesdays or something, flight prices go up. So that's a little tidbit too. So I always try to do it as early as I get the spark to go somewhere. And then I think that financially affording something, it comes with priorities. So for me personally, I'm going to talk about me because I know what I do. I don't like eat out a ton. I don't have a lot of things at home. I try to keep things at home like the bare minimum so that I can afford to go places. So I like pick and choose what I spend my money on. I have this there's the saying of collect like memories, not things. So I definitely love to live by that. So it's all about priorities. So what do you want to do with your money a lot of times? So I choose to spend a lot of my money on adventuring. So I keep things at home really simple. To add to that, when I am adventuring somewhere, I'll probably eat one meal out a day. And that usually is to get my coffee that I was talking about. So that really cuts back on costs. I think meals out are super expensive, or they can add up, especially if you're eating out multiple times a day. And then that is super applicable to us at WAG because we have much more control over not eating a ton of meals out. So it's a win-win if you ask me. I lost my note here. Pause. Okay. Oh, and then the last question from Jackie was, what has been your favorite adventure? So I literally in my notes put a huge question mark because I don't have an answer to that. I think that there's something amazing in every like moment that I get to collect. So it's really tough to answer that. So many amazing places. I don't know. Recently, I guess my favorite has been Antelope Canyon. So if you haven't been there, it's in Arizona by Lake Powell. It's amazing, incredible. Like it feels like a dream when you're in it. So yeah, Antelope Canyon, I guess I'll say it's my most recent hard eyes experience. Okay. Next question, how you balance job and being on the run for adventure. So that's how I phrased it. Sorry, Dee Dee. Schedule is huge. Like if you have to work or if you know you have to work, but you also want to get some play in, like you need to build a schedule. I don't think it would be possible if I wasn't, if I didn't build the hour by hour schedule out. So scheduling for me is huge. So when I'm on the go, I'm actually not usually a super early riser when I am at home, but when I am out exploring, I am usually a super early riser. It's funny how that works. I will get up at 3 a.m. to go climb a mountain, but I will not get up at 3 a.m. during the week. So again, it's like priorities. So making the schedule work for you. So it really all goes back to maximizing the time that you have in the place that you're at. So that's building a routine, seeing as much as you can, but also doing the things that you have to too, you know? Okay, so I don't know if anyone else does that with their schedule. I love it. It's kind of one of those OCD habits that I have too, where I love like physically writing it out too. Okay, what are my go-to travel adventure snacks and foods? So this is constantly changing. I'm sure that many of you can relate that eating the same thing over and over is like super boring, but I do have a few like general things that I like to bring along. So it kind of also goes back to if you're driving, how long the trip is. Sometimes I don't bring anything at all. Like if I'm just going on a flight, I will eat a big breakfast and then like wait like if it's a 3-hour flight, I probably won't bring travel snacks and food. Like I'll probably just go right to the grocery store when I get there. But if I'm driving, I have a few like basic things. So I love RX bars. They have the pumpkin spice one out right now. That's phenomenal. The blueberry one tastes like blueberry pancakes to me. So I love the RX bars. Trader Joe's has snacks galore, so I usually will make a stop there. I love their light kettle corn. They come in like little mini bags, so you can just like grab it or whatever while you're on the go, and it's kind of like a nice thing to like munch on. Muscle Milk protein shakes. You can find these like at almost every gas station, at least in the US. It would be awesome if you guys could list like things that you like to bring on the go too in the comments. Or if there's something like, let's say in Canada, that's like you don't have Muscle Milk, like what's another like protein shake? Like, but in the US, like almost every gas station has Muscle Milk protein shakes, and they have like, some of them have 40 grams of protein in them. I think there's ones at the grocery store that don't even need to be refrigerated. There's the Premier protein shakes that are super good. I just found a chocolate one that literally tastes like chocolate milk. Also doesn't need a fridge. Jerky or jerky sticks. Usually you can find those Jack Links like sticks of beef jerky. So I'll do that. Those are fairly reasonable if you don't want to buy a whole bag of jerky. Wraps. So there's the Joseph's wraps. There's the flat out light wraps. There's those carb balance wraps, which I cannot do, way too much fiber. And then I'll put like tuna or something in them, or I'll have some deli meat. Usually deli meat lasts for a little bit without being refrigerated. So I'll usually eat that early. And then also fresh cut like fruits and veggies are a good thing to have too. Maybe some of you like rice cakes. Rice cakes are a good thing to have. Another thing, so using a cooler. So a cooler, if you're driving, like really opens up your options. So things like Greek yogurt, and I know everybody can't do that, but I love Greek yogurt. I think that it's such an easy thing to just toss in. So if you can bring a cooler, I highly suggest that. Even those, I got one of these like Trader Joe's coolers that is just for like bringing home your cold stuff, and that works amazing. So you can buy something like that for like $6 or whatever at Trader Joe's. And then just toss some ice in there and it's good to go for like 10 hours. So that's what I eat on the go. If you guys have like awesome ideas, go ahead and comment about it, because I think that the more ideas, like obviously the better. Okay, and then my last question that I had prior to, and I'll check the comments, suggestions on where to travel as a single traveler, places that are safe, and adventures that allow you to still meet people along the way. So personally, I think Iceland is incredibly friendly. I didn't feel any sort of like danger there at all. Thailand's another place that I didn't really feel that way. There's a ton of places like that, and I probably won't visit them all, you know. I think the biggest things for this are using like your stranger danger and like listening to your gut, you know, like don't like things that I personally live by are like not telling people like specific things about what you're doing, where you're going, where you're staying. And like you can meet people, but like if your gut is like telling you like this is sketchy, like you know, like you have to have that guard up. So I've never personally like anywhere that I've been like experienced a bad vibe from someone, or if I did, I like didn't talk to them or like didn't give them any information. So I think that that's like the biggest thing. I'm definitely not an expert on stranger danger though, so just use your best judgment if you are somewhere you're unfamiliar. Yeah, someone asked me about this recently as well in a chat, and I just, if I have a bad feeling, I don't engage with whoever is giving me that bad feeling. And I've never really had a problem. If you have a dog, that's always a great thing to have with you as well. A pup can definitely help you distinguish if it's a stranger danger or not, or also like deter someone from bothering you. So yeah. And then also I think doing your research on dangerous neighborhoods in advance. So when I went to Iceland, for example, I did some research. I just like Googled like bad neighborhoods or whatever, and like everything was like, oh, that's silly, you know, like there's nothing like that there. So you can pretty much find a lot of things by just like searching for it or asking around if you know someone who's been there or yeah. So that is all I have. Does anyone have any questions? Thanks for making it this long, listening to all of this. I would love to get more experience in this area. Hey, Kathy. Hey, Alexa. High five, SJ. Dusty always says that I have good views. Dusty, there are good views where you live too. If I'm correct, you live in Wisconsin, and I'm from Minnesota. So there are definitely things to explore there. There's like different cliffs. I guess it depends on where you're from. Anyways, okay, if no one has any questions, I am gonna say goodbye, but if you have any or you think of any later, go ahead and put them in the comments and I will keep my eye out. Thank you for joining.